Hello, and it feels wonderful to be back on the National League Natter personally. It's been a week away from myself. I had some time off, but I am back now, and I'm ready and rejuvenated to be discovering and talking about the National League at game week number 18, which blows my mind. 18 games in already. That is crazy. But with me this on Monday is not Chris. We have some might say we have upgraded, but I'm not gonna weigh in on that debate. But joining me for his second successive National League Natter podcast is Adam. How are you, Adam? How are you feeling? How do you think the overall game week looked to you? And yeah, how has your weekend been?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back on, Aaron. I wasn't sure how long I'd have to wait before I could get back on the podcast, but now I'm doing two in a row, so I'm buzzing about that. And also, for those of you who don't know, this is my first National League NASA podcast with Aaron as well. So now I've completed the full set. I've had the experience of Chris and Lauren, and some might say I've upgraded too to Aaron this time around. So
Don't let Lauren. Don't let Lauren hear you say that. She'll be kicking us all
I might expect an angry message on WhatsApp later, but
up.
yeah, my weekend's been great, mate. Obviously, uh, the listeners should know by now I'm a Wealdstone fan, so we obviously got a huge win on the weekend against Oldham's rivals, nonetheless as well. Aaron's also happy about the result, and
Very nice.
and just I think what stood out to me most from the weekend is just again the sheer amount of goals.
Yeah,
Like there's been honestly so many goals scored in this league at the moment. And yeah, the weekend didn't disappoint either, and we're going to go through all the games shortly. But
I think the we've been banging the drum for the National League to not be classed as like a non-league kind of system. Really, I think it always should be classed as like a almost like a Division 5 or like like you have League 2 and then it cuts. I don't think it should be that, and I think the argument for that gets stronger and stronger with the quality and the quality of games week on week. So yeah, I'm really excited to be back and be doing this. So Adam, I don't think there is more important and probably a more better place for us to start than the top of the table clash that took place at 5:30 on DAZN on Saturday evening, and it was the two high flyers. It was Forest Green taking on York City at the new lawn. Now, going into this game, I'll be honest. If I was doing my own predictions last week, I probably would have predicted a York win. If I'm being honest, just because York, some of the football I've seen York play this season and how free flowing and high scoring they've been, I just thought maybe they'd have a bit more too much firepower and a bit more too much attacking prowess for Forest Green because I'm going to get it in early. I can boast that my Oldham side are one of the only teams who have beat Forest Green this year.
mm,
And when they did come at Boundary Park, I weren't overly impressed with them, but I think that's because we stopped them playing. But the actual result ended up being a 2-0 home win for Forest Green, and two beautiful goals were
mm.
scored in this game from Bunker and McAllister. Now I don't know whether you've seen the highlights ads, but they were brilliant goals, and it kind of just it lays a marker down, doesn't it? That result for Forest Green. I think it like they are serious contenders now. I know they are many people's favourites for the title now, and like to go 13 unbeaten in 13 um, home games. Sorry, to carry on being unbeaten at home and end York's 13 game unbeaten streak is some sort of impressive record, isn't it? And obviously, York were on a 4 game winning run from this game. So yeah, how impressed were you with Forest Green? And what about York trying to bounce back and sort of keep with the big boys?
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that it was a statement result from Forest Green, in front of their own fans as well. Um, because they had to win to go top of the table. A draw wouldn't have been enough. And they've gone and they've won the game, and they've leapfrogged York as well. And I think for those that did watch the game, I think it was thoroughly deserved as well. I've watched the highlights as well, and as you said, two beautiful goals as well, worthy of winning any game. So Forest Green will be especially pleased with that. Even though I keep saying it is early days and stuff, but to be top of the table at this stage is always good, always healthy, and to beat one of your main title rivals as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
obviously, I think we've sort of said, I know you and Lauren said on the preview that there's 4 or 5 teams that can probably win this division and are going to try and win this division. But how sort of important and how sort of big of a marker do you think that is for Steve Cottrell's men? And that is kind of like them announcing that they are in the title race and they're not going to be budged out of it easily, isn't it?
oh yeah, definitely. Forest Green, I think for most people, are definitely in the title race without question, and perhaps even the favourites to win it now. They've had, just looking now, they've had such a good run. They've won 5 of their last 6. As you said, only lost twice this season. So have York, to be fair. But both, to be two, they're 2 full points clear now as well. And then you've got Barnet as well, just lurking behind them as well, and your boys as well, Oldham, Gateshead. Honestly, those top 5 will still feel themselves that they could all win this division very
Yeah,
comfortably.
absolutely. And
So
it makes a nice difference, really, doesn't it? From the last 2 years of
yeah,
just having 1-off
100%.
title races and everyone kind of fighting their own battles. Now
Yeah,
it's actually juicy, and there's multiple things riding on the game week, isn't there? And I think that for a neutral, that's the way you want it to be.
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Um. So obviously, from a York perspective, now there's no need to panic. Absolutely no need to panic, but it's interesting with York because before the season started, we said they had the capability to be up and around it. If Ugle kind of stopped his off the field politics, which to be fair to him, he seems to have done, and they've come out the gates blistering this year. But obviously that is the second loss of the season now, and I'll be honest, I do believe that eventually your Barnets, Oldhams, and maybe even Gateshead and Rochdale will overtake York. If I'm being honest, that might be controversial, but
Mm.
I just think they've got kind of the more sort of, I don't know what the word is. It seems like there's teams that are kind of more relentless at the minute and more sort of determined. But I think, how impressed have you been with York to be able to get themselves in the title picture first and foremost anyway? And obviously it's just a little blip, but what do you think they need to put right at the weekend to get themselves back up and around the conversation?
Oh, I've been mightily impressed by York. I think some people forget that they were in a relegation battle last season
Mm-hmm.
with Wealdstone and a few other teams down there. So to even go from sort of down there up to second so quickly as well. I mean, they had a very good summer. Don't get me wrong with like recruitment and stuff, but for any team to sort of jump that many places up the table so quickly is a big achievement in itself. And I don't see any reason at the moment for they why they might slip down. But as you said, it's so competitive at the top, and there are, I guess you could say, more traditional teams. I guess at the top, some big teams that have sort of fallen down from the EFL. That might be expected in the long term, maybe to carry their weight and be up there. But York at the moment have been one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league so far this
Yeah,
season. Like their style of play as well, I think has to have a mention as well. They're one of the best footballing teams in the league, definitely.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely. I
and
think it's sorry. Go on.
no, it's okay. And yeah, I think at the moment it's one loss. They shouldn't feel too downhearted, but they need to make sure that they do bounce back this weekend and make sure that it's only a tiny blip and it doesn't get worse
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I'll be interested to look into their response for sure. I think next up we should go to, considering he's not here to do it himself, you're going to take the mantelpiece of talking of an absolute barn burner involving Chrissy's boys, Barnet, aren't you? So do you want to take us away on that, Ads?
Sure. As much as I dislike Barnet, they do always tend to find a way to get these late goals and turn 1 point into 3 points, and it's very annoying from a
I mean,
Wealdstone
let's be honest.
fan.
I would say it was 0 point. It was,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
they were 3-1 down in this game. It was 0 points to 3 points in the quick of a flash, weren't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was, yeah. They got two penalties, didn't they? Two quite quick penalties to turn the game around. So yeah, I mean, yeah, zero. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Actually, it was probably 0 to 3. But with Barnett's firepower, especially with Kabamba, like he's such a good player. As a Wealdstone fan, I can admit that as well. He's such a good player, and he scores so many goals for them. It seems like whenever I check the Barnet results, he's always on the score sheet. So yeah, they've got. I think with Barnet they've got that big firepower that they might concede a few goals, but they can score plenty of goals as well. And this result, in terms of Barnet winning, didn't surprise me, but perhaps the manner of it did.
I,
But yeah,
I,
7 goal thriller.
I think it is interesting though with Barnet in terms of, I seen our good friend of the deck, Tom Williams, on Twitter. He said Barnet are definitely the entertainers of the division, but how sustainable is it that they're going to concede 2 goals a game at the minute? They're in a period where apart from the Oldham game last weekend, they're conceding a lot of goals, and yes, they have got the firepower, but do you think it is that sort of style of play and that sort of mantra is sustainable enough longer term to try and win a league title?
Um, I'd like to think not. Um, I did. I personally tipped Barnet to win the league at the start of the season because I was very impressed with their summer. I think towards the end of last season, they faltered a little bit, but were still pretty strong. And as I said, usually firepower is enough to win those games. But I do agree in the sense that they are conceding far too many goals. And I
Yeah.
think Barnet fans would agree with that as well. And it's one of those things where, again, and it, no disrespect to Dagenham and Redbridge, but it's not against some of the teams in and around them as well. So when they start facing the Forest Greens and the Yorks and stuff, how many goals will they be able to score against such a
Yeah.
fragile Barnet defence? And if you look at the table right now, in terms of the top 4, they've conceded at least 6 more goals than any other team in that top 4, including your boys. But they've scored the most in the division, so it's a tough one. Barnet fans may argue that their firepower can push them to the top, but they do need to stop conceding so many silly goals as well.
I think that's the
And that,
thing. That's the thing for me. If it was like stroke of geniuses from the opposition every time, then you'd be like, okay, we're having bad luck here, but you can't really do a lot, stand up, applaud it, whatever, and still win the games. But it's individual mistakes at the back every time for Barney.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I guess their argument was, as long as they're winning, they're still going to be, up and around it in the league title picture, which is fair enough. From a Dagger's persuasion, then, just very quickly,
mm,
um, very, very, I would say a very inconsistent start for Daggers, really. Were you
yeah.
kind of expecting more from them at this point of the season? Obviously, we know they've got some great talent, Dion Pereira mainly. But yeah, so what are you making of Dagger's start to the season, or sort of this point to the season?
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. I think it has been a very mixed bag, and that tells by the table and their results as well. Um, I'm not sure about Dagenham and Redbridge potentially pushing higher. I think the optimistic fans might have hoped that they potentially reach the playoff places, but I think a top half finish for Dagenham and Redbridge first of all should be the main goal for them, and then see how they go from there. But we have to remember as well, it is only November. There is
Yeah, of
still a
course.
long way to go, and Dagenham can definitely pick up as well. They have the players to do it as well. They have the talent, as you said. So
Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. So I guess now this will probably be my highlight of the podcast. Shall we? Shall we talk about my boys? How we're viewing my boys so far this season?
take it
Um,
away, mate.
but so this weekend was our closest game to Remembrance Sunday. So we had a lot of ex and serving military in at Boundary Park. So that was it was going to be a nice day anyway, regardless. And oh my God, did my boys turn up! And before I go into it, I would like to just say as well, we beat Tamworth 4-0, and I don't actually think Tamworth are the worst team I've seen us play at Boundary Park this season either. So I think it just shows how professional and how sort of ruthless we were on Saturday. And, James Norwood rolling back the years with a hat trick inside like the first half. I think he is a confidence player. He is a goal machine when he gets a service, and like hopefully that kind of kickstarts his season because we have been a little bit reliant on Big Mike Fondop at times, but he's been working for us. But yeah, 4-0 against a Tamworth side that weren't afraid to try and pass the ball. I think sometimes that was the weakness. Maybe they were trying to pass the ball against a team that presses very well, and they got caught out a couple of times. But yeah, look, we're up into fourth now. Still only two losses all season. Two losses in 23 games in all competitions. I think it is, which is a redonkulous run, really, if I'm being honest. And from my perspective now, we're talking about Forest Green. We're talking about Barnet being up there in the title picture. Yes, Oldham are off, maybe 6 points off it, but that is only two games. And considering we've lost two in 23, I think it's about time that people. I mean, I don't know about you, Adam, but sometimes I like going under the radar. I
Mm.
feel like we can get our business done without many eyes, and that's probably a good thing. But also, at what point do you think that maybe Oldham should be starting to get taken a little bit more seriously? And there's to me, bias or not, there's no reason why Oldham can't be in the title picture.
Oh no, mate, I'd agree with you on that. I think anybody saying that Oldham aren't title contenders at the moment are really kidding themselves. Um, I've been very very impressed with Oldham, especially recently. And Lauren and I talked about this game on the preview show, and we were saying, Tamworth are one of those teams that can pull off a shock result in this league. They do tend to do that, but Oldham, a very professional performance, and obviously you've got to shout out Norwood for the hat trick. But every single one of those players can be really proud of that performance, and it's the momentum you need. And as you said, two losses in 23 games. It's that kind of momentum going into a busy Christmas period as well. And you're really not far off the top at all. And it really wouldn't surprise me if Oldham do push further up the league, and then maybe you might start getting your flowers.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it's not I don't even think it's a case of me just wanting flowers for the sake of wanting flowers. I do think recently like I've been seeing some of the National League commentaries on Twitter and the pundits and the analysis, and not a lot of people are mentioning us, and I don't know why that is. And it's funny because I keep seeing people say, "Oh yeah, but Oldham can turn toxic after if they lose a couple of games on the spin." That has not happened since David Unsworth was in charge, and there was a good reason why. that was happening when David Unsworth was in charge. It's because, if we're being honest, he was a PE teacher. Like he
Yeah.
he led us to some awful results with awful football. Whereas now you've got a proven National League multiple time winner in Mickey Mellon, a proven promotion winner in Mickey Mellon, and you've got, yes, we probably have one of the richest squad in the division, but like, you can have all the money in the world and you can still perform badly. I mean, look at, for a bigger example, look at the inconsistent start that Madrid have made over in Spain this year. They've got
Yeah.
a god squad and they're struggling. So it takes a good manager to be able to put it all together. And I think we are there, and I expect us to be up and around them title positions. Definitely. We've got a big Christmas coming up. Like I said, we have York on Boxing Day, which will be a big game. But from a Tamworth point of view, then obviously it was always going to be a tough place for Tamworth to come. Obviously, Boundary Park. But that if I'm looking at the league table now, Tamworth are 15th. They have 22 points, but they now have no winning 4 after winning 2 on the spin before that. They are still 4 adrift of Fylde in 21st, so they've still got that cushion. But first of all, how do you sort of perceive Tamworth at this point in the season? And are you a bit worried that they're maybe starting to get found out a little bit and they could slip further to them sort of relegation spots?
I think again, it's a little bit too early to say they might. So I've been pretty impressed with Tamworth, to be honest. I think them being sort of 4 points clear of the relegation zone, for a newly promoted side as well, I don't think they have too much to worry about. My only real concern with Tamworth is that similar to Barnet, but obviously on a different half of the table, they do concede a lot of goals, Tamworth. So they've conceded 32 now, which is only only 2 teams have conceded more goals than Tamworth this season. That's bottom of the league, Ebbsfleet and Fylde. So if they can shore up that defence a little bit, they'll be absolutely fine. But they do need to watch that a little bit, I think. But at the moment, they're in 15th. They're 4 points clear of the relegation zone. They're in a healthy position at this stage of the season. But just shore up that defence a little bit, and they'll be fine, I think. Tamworth.
Yeah, I agree. What's the football to be played? But shall we turn our attention to a side that we don't think are going to be very fine and just seems to be getting... And we're sorry, Ebbsfleet fans, we are not intentionally digging you out, but you are comfortably by far now probably one of the worst sides maybe in the National League in
Oh.
recent memory, which is a shame. But Adam, do you want to talk about Solihull's absolute demolition of Ebbsfleet away from home this weekend for me, please?
Yeah. You can choose sort of the adjectives you want, but it was honestly shocking. Remember, Solihull went down to 10 men very early in that game as well, and still 6-0 at home as well. And Solihull Moors, yeah, they got into the playoffs. They might have expected maybe to be a little higher up at this stage of the season, but they're not Forest Green or York either. And I'm trying not to be disrespectful there, but it was a shock. It was a shocker. It was a shocker for Ebbsfleet, and I tried to give their fans a little form of hope on the preview show, but it is looking very, very bleak now. They're 10 points now behind my boys Wealdstone, who just climbed out of the relegation zone. Now they're 10 points behind in terms of surviving, and one win all season, conceded the most goals by far. They aren't quite the lowest scorers. Braintree are the lowest scorers at the moment, but they're not far in front, and it looks very, very bleak for Ebbsfleet right now.
I mean, it is worth pointing out, just for the balance of arguments, obviously, Solihull lost a man very early, inside 6 minutes, but then the teams were evened up, and Ebbsfleet lost a man as well 2 minutes before half time, and it was 0-0 at half time. So the fact
context there,
the fact that Ebbsfleet did chip 6 in the space of 45 minutes is staggering, is the word I'm going to use, really. There's going down to 10 men and struggling, and maybe shipping 2 to 3, but to ship 6 is a real big problem, in my opinion. But I just wanted to touch upon Solihull now. They are flying from what was a very, very poor start for the Moors. They've won 4 out of 6, 4 out of the last 6. They have an absolute speedster and I don't even know what we call him at this point, but I know Callum absolutely loves him. In Poku, Adu Poku, he scored and he got an assist against Ebbsfleet, and apparently since he's come in, Solihull have been a completely different outfit. Obviously, Connor Wilkinson got a hat-trick. So how impressed have you been with Solihull Moors and Andy Wyman's sorry, not Andy Wyman, Andy Wing's men, in terms of the resurgence and sort of getting themselves back up into playoff contention?
Oh yeah, it's been a really good turnaround. As you said, Solihull did start the season pretty poorly by their standards, and they would probably admit that themselves. But as you said, 4 wins in 6 now, and yes, it was against the bottom of the league, but a 6-0 victory away from home is still impressive, whoever you're playing against. And as you said, they've got players that are bang on form at the moment. Wilkinson, Poku especially. They've got momentum at the moment, and that's what you need when you're just outside the playoffs. And they will be, looking at especially teams like Rochdale, and Halifax, and only a couple of points behind them now, and the momentum, the pendulum certainly swinging back to Solihull and in Solihull's favour now. So, form is a big thing in football in general, and in the National League, where it can be so unpredictable at the top. A big win for Solihull, in more ways than one, and they'll back themselves to get in those playoff places come the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is what I mean about competitive divisions. There's so many teams that you can make arguments for in any sort of position in these league table, and I think it's probably one of the best National League seasons we've had for neutrals in a long time. So moving on to another team in playoff contention at the minute is it was Yeovil at home this weekend to Halifax Town, and I have spoken about on this podcast that maybe potentially I don't have the biggest amount of love, but I have a lot of respect. That's the difference for Halifax. But at this point, I think you have to look at Chris Millington and his men and think you might not like the way they play football, but they have a structure there. They're very difficult to beat. They're very defensively solid, and they've just got capabilities of being able to pick these results out of nowhere and keep themselves at the right ends of the tables and in the right conversations, haven't they? Really, Adam. I mean, it was a big result for Halifax this game, because Yeovil, considering they've come up this year, they've started really well as well themselves, and I think Halifax have got to be really happy with that performance. Obviously, they actually leapfrogged Yeovil into the playoffs. So yeah, how big of a result is that for Halifax? And just moving away from maybe their inconsistent start, how important is it that you have sort of a structure there, and maybe defense first is the platform that Halifax have been using to build off, and now they're reaping them rewards, I guess.
Yeah, I think if you're not a Halifax fan, you can you can admit that their style of play at times is not an easy watch. But what Halifax are very good at is grinding out results, and this was, as you said, similar to what Forest Green did against York. Halifax got a big win that leapfrogged the team directly above them, and now they're in the playoff places, and Yeovil aren't. So they'll keep thinking, if they can keep grinding out, in 1-0 results or 2-0, 2-1, little results like that, then they'll be in and around it as well. They certainly don't have the firepower that the teams above them do, and that shows in their table as well. They've only scored 20 goals this season, Halifax, but they've only conceded 16, and that's the joint third best defensive record with Yeovil. Only Forest Green and York have conceded fewer. So they have that nice little balance at the moment. And I'm not sure how many Halifax fans would have had them in the playoff places come the start of the season, but certainly they've shown that they can be steady. And I think there is a lot of credit that can be said for that. You don't always have to be, so gung ho attack wise and stuff. And famously, a lot of managers have said that attacks win you games, but defense is win you titles. And we're not saying that Halifax are going to win the league here, but they certainly could be up and around those playoff places come the end of the season if they can obviously remain steady and keep that defense so tight.
Yeah, I agree. So next up, I think you want to touch upon, and you're going to touch upon Sutton. And look, I'll be honest. Obviously, we interviewed as a podcast Steve Morrison earlier on in the season, and I know they'd just been relegated from League Two, and it's not, it's never easy getting out of this division on the first time of asking. Not a lot of teams can do it. But I do think there was a bit of expectation from the manager from speaking to him and the fan base. And if I'm being honest, I'm sorry, Steve, if you're listening, we love you. But if I'm being honest, they have maybe underwhelmed me a little bit, Sutton. I don't think that they are anywhere near as strong as some of the more established teams in this division. But they got a big win on Saturday. Do you just want to touch upon that and touch upon your thoughts about Sutton's start to the season?
Yeah, sure. Sutton, another team potentially that would have maybe hoped to be a little bit higher than what they are this season. But 2 wins in the last 3 after a dreadful run of form. 2 wins in the last 3. They'll like to think that they are picking up slowly and steadily. They're on 25 points now after that win against Maidenhead. Only 1-0. They might have wanted to show that they can score more goals as well, but a win is a win. 3 points is all that matters. And they're on 25 points now, so they're 4 points currently off the playoff places. And very similar to Solihull, if they can pick up form at the right time, which they seem to be doing at the moment, certainly in terms of the last 3 results, then they also could feel that they can push up as well. I mean, this league is so competitive, like especially at the top, that most teams in the top half will feel like they can finish in the top 7 come the end of the season. But yeah, I think Sutton are after a poor start as well by their standards and a drop in form. They'll start to believe again that they have an outside chance. Let's say that they have an outside chance of making those playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I have just noticed looking at my notes, for some reason, we as we were talking about teams that are in and around the playoffs and the league in general, we have forgot to speak about your boys. So
Ah, I
do
was
you?
wondering when this was going to come.
Yeah. Do you wanna? Do you wanna? First of all, you can make my weekend even better and talk about how you beat Rochdale, please. But also, while you're there, just give a quick overview of your thoughts and feelings of the other end of the table, because I think we give a lot of airtime to the top end of the table in this podcast. But there's also a intriguing battle going on. But I would probably say two spaces out of four now, really, in the
Mm.
bottom four, because I think, like we said, I think maybe Ebbsfleet and Boston probably at this point are looking weak compared to the rest of the teams in that fight.
Yeah, no, definitely. Obviously for Wealdstone, there's no doubt we've had an uptick in form. Um, the start of the season was really depressing. Really, I think we only won one of our first sort of 13 odd games. Um, but I think the uptick in form has sort of come not from the National League, strangely, probably more the big FA Cup win we got against
Yeah,
Grimsby, a League Two side, and we did ride our luck a lot in that game, but we somehow managed to grind a win, and obviously we're all looking forward to the I'm going to coin it now because he works for us, the Max Kretschmar derby. And Max will be hoping that he'll get on the score sheet in that game. But it's going to be a tough ask against Wickham. They're such a good side. But yeah, I think since that game, our confidence, I think, has just gone through the roof. And we got a good win against Aldershot last week, a 2-0 win. And this was a big challenge for us against Rochdale, who, are currently in the playoff places. And I think aside from the Grimsby win, this has probably been our most impressive win of the season so far. We haven't had many, but this has definitely been the most impressive win and most impressive performance. We played very, very well. We made Rochdale look quite average at times, especially with our possession based play and stuff. And we had
some
chances.
some might argue that Rochdale are quite average, to be honest.
I wouldn't disagree. I wouldn't disagree, but I don't want that to come bite me when we go to their place late in the season, and we might need a win to stay up or something. But yeah, we were very, very good. Obviously Max Kretschmar opened the scoring for us, and Cisse as well got a rare goal. So it's nice to see other players on the score sheet as well. We've been relying a lot on, a loanee from your club, Alex Reid, who's done very well for us, who won
Yeah,
October's Player of the Month,
good to hear.
and Sam Ashford as well, who's been banging the goals in. But it's nice to see different players on the score sheet as well. And this is the first time that Wealdstone have been outside of the relegation zone in a long time. I'm not sure if we've been in it before. I'm sure Stones fans will come in and tell me we might have done, but it feels a long time since we've been outside of those relegation places, and it's a nice feeling.
Yeah,
And with the momentum, who knows? Who knows?
yeah, absolutely. I think I said to you after I came to see you after the preview show on Thursday, and I said you're probably in the best position in that sort of dogfight to get yourselves out of it now, because you're actually, you seem to have a system there that's working, and the rest of the teams above you and below you are probably a little bit too inconsistent at the minute. But it does bring me on to another team within in and around that dogfight that got a big win this weekend, and that was Woking, who beat fellow strugglers Boston 1-0 at home. And the reason why I say that this was such a big win for Woking is because it was the first win since September 10th, Adam.
Yeah,
Um,
that's big. Yeah,
and they, you know, they've gone a bit clear now of the drop zone with that result, and it's a big win for Woking because, again, a little bit like Eastleigh, we were talking about before we came on the podcast, that Woking were riding high earlier in the season. They were shocking a lot of people. They were in them playoff places for a good number of weeks at the start of the season, and then they just fell off a cliff, really. And at some points, it was looking like they were just going to nosedive and crumble. So to be able to get that sort of win and get that sort of confidence back in them is a big thing. But I think it's important. We give a lot of stick to Ebbsfleet, but I think we should probably give the same amount of stick to Boston, who started the season quite well and showed quite a lot of resilience. But they have picked up 4 points from a possible 33, and yet they've lost 4 out of the last 6. They've only won 2 games all season. They've lost 11 games. So yeah, I think they could be on the verge of going as well. But start with Woking with your thoughts and opinions first, and then go to what you think about Boston.
Yeah, as you said, big win for Woking. Yes, it's against second from bottom, but as you said, they haven't won since September, so it was really important for them. And as you said, they were flying high. They were flying high, but they've kind of dropped off a cliff really in recent games. And a couple of teams in this division have experienced that now. So to get that win back, yeah, it's huge for them. And now so they're on 20 points now, a few places above that relegation zone, 2 points clear. They'll if they could record back-to-back wins, that would be like even more like it'd be spectacular for them. But yeah, they will feel now, Woking, that they will hopefully have turned a corner, and yeah, they'll hope that they can climb up the table again, because if they keep dropping points, we were saying how tight it was it is at the top of the table. At the bottom of the table, bar maybe Ebbsfleet and Boston, there are still potentially 2 of those places up for grabs. And at the moment, I don't think Woking will count themselves safe yet. So another couple of wins and they'll be flying high. But yeah, there's no doubt it was a massive win for them.
Yeah, I agree, and it's definitely a fight that I think deserves attention as much as the top battle. I think people need to keep an eye on the bottom battle because there's things happening all over in this division. Places up for grabs everywhere, and it's very rare that you get that in a league. So maybe that's why we call it the best 5th tier on the planet, eh?
Yeah.
But moving on now, I believe you're going to talk to us about the Gateshead versus Aldershot game.
Yes. So this was a really interesting game, actually. If any of you listeners have caught the highlights and stuff, Gateshead were very dominant in this game against Aldershot, and I think even the most optimistic Aldershot fan could admit that they might have been a bit lucky to get a point here. But yeah, I think Gateshead will see it as 2 points dropped at home. Obviously, my boys played Aldershot last week and beat them at their own ground. So Gateshead would have come into this game thinking that they could win this game at home. But Gateshead are a funny team at the moment, because I remember speaking like in one of the earlier episodes in the podcast, absolutely loving Gateshead, like the praise for them and their style of play, etc. were off the charts, and yeah, they seem to have stumbled a little bit at the moment. But they're still a very strong side, and I don't think they should take this result to heart too much. They're still in and around those places, and they should still back themselves to potentially win this league as well. They are a good enough side, I think, Gateshead, to do that. Obviously, they've got news of their stadium potentially being sorted by the end of the season as well, which would be huge for them. Because obviously they should have gone up last season, if not for the problems with their stadium. So it was just one of those where it just wasn't quite Gateshead's day, but it was an entertaining game, I guess, for the neutral, nonetheless. So it was an interesting one for sure.
And then from an Aldershot persuasion, then if you're looking at obviously this game in isolation, but also their sort of season so far, they are struggling as well, and that's something that I don't know whether I would say surprises me, because they lost Tolaj and they lost Stokes in the summer and never really replaced them. But I do think Aldershot are a little bit stronger than where they are, where they currently are in the league table. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I would. Obviously, huge losses in the summer, and they're still trying. I think they are still trying to recover from that. I think the big thing with Aldershot this season that they need to try and sort out is that too many draws. I think when they need to convert those into wins, they've only won 4 games all season, and that's just it's the same as my boys, Wealdstone and Maidenhead, even below us. So they need to try and find a way to convert those draws into wins. Even though I think it was a good point for them in the end against Gateshead, but they do seem to struggle against teams more down the bottom of the league and in and around them, and that's something that they do need to look at for the future. But I think they are definitely better than what they've shown so far. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. Now, moving on now, we're getting to the back end of the podcast. Only 3 more games left. But moving on, I think it's time to talk about Altrincham versus Southend. And to me, this game features 2 teams that it's funny because we spent a lot of the earlier in the season going, Alty going to miss Con Clark, and they're really sort of struggling. And, they had a really tough opening, maybe 10, 12 games of the season. And they brought in some questionable signings. But they are slowly but surely starting to climb that league table and edge the way back into the playoff discussion. And this was aided on Saturday thanks to a 2-0 win over Southend United. Now, all strikers scored for Altrincham, which is always a good sign, I think, when all your strikers get on the score sheet. Maybe apart from Regan Linney, but Regan Linney got the assist, so we still contributed, I guess. But Joe Nuttall, on loan from Oldham, got Alty off to a flyer in the 9th minute, and then Alex Newby, the ever-reliant Alex Newby for Altrincham, scored in the 42nd minute to effectively end the game at half-time at 2-0, and Southend didn't really have a response. But look, Southend are another one, really, that have surprised me how poor they have been this year, if I'm being honest, because I thought it would have gone the opposite way. They have the sort of the ownership fix, they have the pressure of not being in court, they have a manager that they trust and they love, they can sign players. But for some reason, it's just not worked out that way for him, has it, Adam? And I don't know if you've been disappointed with Southend as well, but just first of all, touch upon the upturn in Altringham's form, but also the sort of disappointment in Southend season.
Yeah, we'll start with the positive, and that's Altrincham. They're unbeaten in 5 now in the league, 2 wins, 3 draws, and we've banged on about it with Solihull and Sutton, but they're another one of those teams where if they can have a strong end to the season, they could see themselves in the playoffs as well. It is ridiculous how tight it is between those I think those maybe two playoff places I'd certainly say are definitely up for grabs, and potentially even 3 or 4. Impressive. Another impressive win for them against Southend, and I would echo what you said as well. I know some people that had Southend as potential title challengers, potential title
Yeah.
winners even. To see them in 16th at the moment is really it must be really disappointing for them and their fans. And yes, they seem to have sorted out the ownership now, and that's a big positive for them. But I think I think it's safe to say some of those Southend players are underperforming at the moment, and I don't think they'll be in relegation trouble. I think they've got too much quality, but they do need to look over their shoulders slightly because they're only 3 points above the relegation zone at the moment, and if two losses on the bounce now, if they go into another bad run of form come Christmas, yeah, they could drop even more. So Southend need to be careful.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree definitely. Like you said, I do think they have too much quality to really go down. But then again, I don't think you can ever say that in football,
Mm.
So it's going to be an interesting one. But the last game we are going to touch upon with goals in it this week is Braintree versus Fylde. Now, this was a big win for Braintree. I think. Obviously, many people could have branded it, a relegation battle or a relegation 6-pointer, whichever way you want to look at it. And it was Braintree that came out on top thanks to um, experienced talisman F. Young scoring in the 60th minute.
Never
And
too old.
look, he got the goal on the 59th minute, and then Fylde sort of misery was compounded because they had a man sent off. It was Roberts in the 61st minute, Tyler Roberts, and yeah, like look, Braintree will take massive confidence from that result. I think, but from a Fylde point of view, I have kind of said this season that I do worry that they rely so heavily on Nick Horton at times that sometimes if he is playing a 5 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10, they're never going to win games. And I think that sentiment is always echoed with how inconsistent and how poor they have been, even with him lighting up the league this year. And now they are back in them relegation spaces, albeit on goal difference. But they have 7 worse goals than your boys, Wealdstone. And it is crazy because they have won 3 of the last 6 Wealdstones. So, not Wealdstone, sorry, Fylde. So it's
Mm.
crazy to see them in that position. But I do think they are inconsistent, and it seems that if Nick Horton isn't on fire, neither are Fylde.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, and I think the alarming thing with Fylde is the goals conceded. As you said, Fylde have got firepower. They will, think still that their firepower can get them out of the mess that they're kind of in at the moment. Um, but again, far too many goals conceded for Fylde. Obviously, it was only one at the weekend, but it was against a direct rival in Braintree. It is funny just seeing Wealdstone sort of sandwiched in between both clubs, but yeah, Fylde 37 goals, more on average, more than 2 a game conceded. Again, only Ebbsfleet have conceded more goals, and if you have a defence as leaky as that, it doesn't matter how many goals you score, honestly. Um, and that is something that they really need to start addressing now because they've been on a weird sort of streak of form, haven't they? They seem to win and then lose and then win and
Yeah.
then lose. So they'll probably win at the weekend, but it's one of those they do need to, especially defensively, try and sort themselves out. But it's so tight at the bottom that they might scrape a place above the relegation zone. But yeah, it's concerning for them right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think as long as they do have Nick Horton and can keep holding Nick Horton, they have got a chance of winning enough games to survive. But I think they are far too inconsistent, and like you say, they need some defensive reinforcements, definitely. Right, we're getting towards the end of the podcast now, and there's only one game left, and because I am the one with the power on this podcast,
Oh,
I'm gonna put you in the situation that I always put Chris in. Give us a rundown of a 0-0, please, and that 0-0 is Hartlepool versus Eastleigh.
it doesn't get any easier, does it? I think at least with some 0-0s, you can kind of say, it's very entertaining game, sort of end to end and stuff. But neither of these teams are on form at all, are they? And it wasn't really surprising to see a 0-0 result in this game. Um, I think maybe from Eastleigh's point of view, they'll be disappointed not to win the game because Hartlepool did go down to 10 men very early on.
Yes, of course.
Dodds got, I think it was Dodds, yeah, Dodds got sent off in the opening 15 minutes or so. So Eastleigh, I think, will be more disappointed with the point. But yeah, once Hartlepool went down to 10 men so early, sorry. They sort of kept men behind the ball and tried to grind out that result. And Eastleigh, after such a strong start to the season as well, they're struggling to score goals at the moment. Eastleigh, aren't they? And
Yes.
they are, dare I say, they're just falling off a cliff. It's six games now without a win for Eastleigh. Hartlepool have had slightly better form, but yeah, Eastleigh. I think we noticed it before the podcast as well that the numbers in the table are basically just
I was
scream average, don't it?
I was just going to touch upon that for a little bit of a light note to end the
Yeah,
podcast. So, yeah, Eastleigh are currently 12th in the table, so as central as you can get, like middle of the road. And they have 6 wins, 6 draws, 6 losses. They've scored 26 goals. Is it 26 goals or 25?
25.
Sorry, they've scored 25 goals and conceded 25 goals. How consistently middle of the road can you be? They should have their own sort of medal and title for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I think that ends our rundown, and that probably brings an end to the match day 18 review, Adam. So, have you enjoyed your first National League review show? And I guess we can break the news to the audience now. You will hopefully be hearing Adam more regular with us because he will be joining the National League podcast family, and he will be a frequent voice and face on the podcast now. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. But how have you enjoyed the podcast today?
Oh, it's been very good. As you said, it's actually my first review show. My previous 2 appearances have both been on the preview show. So it's good to reflect on another brilliant weekend of National League football. And we don't just say that, like, just look at the results, look at the amount of goals scored. Ignore the 0-0 from Hartlepool and Eastleigh, but outside of that, some very exciting games again, and obviously both of us are jittery because both of our teams got good wins on the weekend as well, which always helps brighten the mood when we go into these podcasts. And
Yeah, absolutely.
as
Absolutely.
Aaron said, I'm gonna join the podcast hopefully on a permanent basis now, so you'll get to hear more of my southern accent. It's not going to be so northern now anymore.
Yeah, exactly. 2 Southerners and 2 Northerners, perfect balance. So with
Yeah.
that being said, I'll be back on Thursday with my northern what should we call her? I was gonna call her my friend, but I think that's a little bit too kind. No, I'm joking. I will be back with Lauren on Thursday for the preview and for a next round of predictions, which is always exciting. and we will be back on the review show at this time next week. But in the meantime, we have been National League Natter. This has been your Matchday 18 review, and until then, we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.